Welcome. So glad you all have made it. I recognize several of your names because I've got to be in a training with you or know you through some other way, but my name is Mary Belcher, and I appreciate you taking time out of your very busy day. And on a Monday, of all things, what was I thinking? I am so sorry. When I set this up, I was like, oh, let's go ahead and start out the week. And then, Monday's a tough day. So understand having the cameras off, not a problem whatsoever. I know for some of you, this might be the first time you're sitting down, and you still may not be. And you might be needing to grab something to eat because you've not eaten today. So appreciate you all showing up today. And I hope that you walk away today with something that you can say you can use tomorrow in your class. That is the goal. And so what we're going to talk about today are assessment and task resources. This document was shared with me. I know some of you I've been in trainings with. Didn't get this till December. And so when it got in my hands, I was like, okay, what's the best way to share this out? And I know in a lot of our trainings, we've talked about, that each grade level needing access to materials. So that's why I went with a grade level each Monday, so that we could say there's even something for kindergarten on here. So let's get started, and just so glad that you're here today. As far as my background, the majority of my career has been as a 7th grade science teacher. And so my 6th grade science teacher was a great help to me. And so just know that you are greatly appreciated for what you do to help with science, because it matters. It really does. And we'll be looking at that too here in just a little bit. What we're going to do and focus on today is we're going to increase your access to science assessment and tasks. So hopefully you will definitely be able to say, yep, you got that. Evaluating your assessments and your tasks, making sure, is it getting to what it needs to be? Because we know our standards are different. They're going to a level that we have not been used to in the past. Back with the old core content, we used to call it, for those of you that are on here, and I know some of you got some years on you like me, it was more about just rote memorization. These standards are not that way. It is very skill emphasis with our science engineering practices and our cross-cutting concepts. So wanting to make sure, are the assessments we are using, are they getting to what we need them to assess? And then also adjusting those assessments or tasks to meet the rigor of those 3 dimensions. So as we get started, I want you to think about in your mind, since we're talking all this about what's a good science assessment, what I want you to do is I want you to think, and I want you to type in the chat, but do not hit enter until I say go. I want you to type in the chat, what makes a good science assessment task? Do not hit enter, but just a couple of words. What is it that makes it a good science assessment or task? So if you will, just type in the chat, hold. I'm going to give you just a few seconds. Doesn't have to be real lengthy, but just, what makes it a good science? What makes a good science assessment or task when you got a good win-win? What? So, and we're going to do a little quick waterfall here. And so, are we ready? All right, go ahead and hit enter, and let's see what you all come up with. Oh, wow, awesome job. Rigorous with clearly defined expectations. There you go. One that students have to apply what they know. Makes them provide evidence. That's great. Alignment to standards. Awesome. Assessing the ability to apply science content knowledge to real world example. Awesome. That is exactly, you all are spot on with a lot of the things that you all are dropping in the chat. Perfect. And several of you, thank you. Thank you for sharing those comments. Is there anything else? Is it rote memorization? Like if I read the question, should our assessments just be like a quick recall anymore, you think? Is it just, that just content knowledge now? Because that's what it was, really heavy back in the day. You know, it's like, what's the fundamental unit of life? Well, you either know that or you don't, right? It's, you know, you're going to read that question, you know it or you don't. It's not, I don't have to go look at information or analyze anything or use any, not if we want to reflect KSA and standards. You are correct, because our standards are not set up for rote memorization. It's very heavily skills based, isn't it? So I do have a little document for you here that I'm going to drop in the chat so you can pull it up. And if you've been in my training, maybe you have received one of these, and if not, you're getting it today. This is from NGSS, and it's a pre-screen tool, and I really like it because I like a good checkbox, you know, when I can check something off. And it's on page 2 of the document I just sent to you. Now, as far as my PowerPoint, you're going to get a copy of it. I'm going to email that to you at the end of the session today for everybody who's signed in. And you're going to get all the links. So don't stress. You're going to have an email that has all of this information in it. And when you go to my email, when you go to my PowerPoint, this is hyperlink. So I can actually just click on that and it'll pull it up. So here is that document that I did on the one page. And so let's take a look at what makes what NGSS, which is where our standards come from. Now we need to live in our Kentucky standards because we did make some changes, not a lot, mainly in the middle school, because NGSS did not make a set of 6th grade standards. They made middle school standards. Well, what did we do in Kentucky? We designated grade levels. We didn't just keep it in that middle school band. So you do have standards that are specifically designated for you as a 6th grade teacher. And it's very important that you teach those on that part too. So just kind of keeping in mind, you know, what is it that makes a good assessment? So this is what NGSS says. They're phenomenon or problem driving the task. So they're going to be around a central idea, and that's kind of, you know, even when we think of ACT, that is kind of how that they are made. They're more phenomenon driven around, you know, several questions around this one basic topic. It's more the science reasoning. So if you check no, then that's a red flag for your assessment. That's one red flag, meaning it doesn't mean you can't use it. It just means you're going to need to tweak it. All right. Can the majority of the task be answered without using information provided by the task scenario? So if I can just read the question and answer it, it kind of goes into 3, also that rote knowledge. You know, I was an academic team coach. I love quick recall. And I'm not saying not to have those questions. You still need some of those questions on your assessments. I'm not saying to get rid of those. It just can't be the majority of your tests. You need to have those others. And when we were having this conversation, I was talking with one teacher. She'd been teaching 22 years. And she said, now, wait a minute. She said, so you need to tell me if I'm doing disciplinary core idea physical science on forces in motion. I need to have a cross-cutting concept that is on cause and effect because that's tied to that standard. I need to have that kind of question on my test. That's exactly what that's telling you. And that also means that if I have conducting an investigation, designing and conducting an investigation, I need to have that type of question on the science and engineering practices. That's why they're 3-dimensional. It's meaning that we have all 3 pieces together and that we're utilizing those in our assessments. Now, before we go any further, the number one thing that's most important is that day-to-day Tier 1 core instruction that you provide your students. If you're doing and providing these learning experiences for your students that are getting to the rigor of the standards to those 3 dimensions, it doesn't matter what assessment anybody throws at them. The state, ACT, colleges, whatever. Your students are going to be okay because of having that solid Tier 1 instruction. So making sure you're having that instruction doesn't matter about what assessment comes their way. So I do want to make sure that we have that conversation up front because that's what matters most, the day in, the day out of your instruction with those kids. That's the best thing. Now, making sure we're having assessment items that match those standards and those 3 dimensions. That's what we're having a hard time doing, because they're not easy to come up with. It's not easy to develop a test around these 3 dimensions. And so I think that's something that I've struggled with myself. I've noticed a lot of other people struggling with. So that's why we're doing this session today, because I found a wonderful resource and wanted to share it with you. But we need to know what makes a good one. So, and I'm going to say they're not all perfect by no means, but it gives you some place to start, and that you can implement and utilize in your instruction with that solid tier 1 instruction that you're doing with your kids. If you notice number 4, does the majority of the task require students to use reasoning to successfully complete the task? If you say no, that's a red flag. So that means it would need some tweaking on that. Does the task require students to use some understanding of disciplinary core ideas to successfully complete the task? Well, it should. You still need that content knowledge in there. It should not, it needs to be still tied to your standards. Do students have to use at least one science and engineering practice to successfully complete it? So is that being incorporated? The answer hopefully is yes, that you are, but if it's no, that's going to need some tweaking. Notice, are the dimensions assessed separately in the majority of the task? If you're saying that yes, it is separate and they're not actually being grouped together, then that's a corrective thing that needs to be worked on. And then, is it coherent and comprehensible? Can your kids understand it? Is it written at their grade level to where they can follow along with it? So those are just the things to keep in mind. So as we're getting ready, I'm getting ready to give you the resource I'm talking about. You need to keep these things in mind. And just like what you shared in the chat, it needs to make sure that it ties back to our standards. Is this my standards? And is it getting to those science, engineering, and those cross-cutting concepts? I had one teacher that had their district reached out to me because the teacher was just devastated that she was not, knocking it through the, doing wonderful on the state assessment. And so they asked me to come and observe. I was like, sure, go in. Rock star teacher. When I walked in and I was in there for 5 minutes, I was like, why on earth am I here? This is a phenomenal teacher. Because she had everything you can't teach someone to do as a teacher. She had relationships, she had the rapport, you could see the engagement. So I was looking around and I didn't really see phenomenon around what we were looking at, but I would say it was a little iffy on that. I said, well, let me see your assessment. Well, that was where the issue was. It was nothing but DCI. There was no 3 dimensions. Her instruction was even going 3-dimensional, but her assessments were not 3-dimension. So you might be having that great instruction, but you also need to assess in those 3 dimensions. That's getting to your standards. So keeping that in mind. I am going to throw another task screener in the chat for you. I don't use this one myself because, number one, I know you do not have the time, but I want to make sure you're aware that it's out there. But this task screener is like, after you've had all the red flags, you could utilize this, but nobody has enough time in the day to go through and do that. I mean, you all are way too busy, but I don't want to have access to something and not share that with you. But that's just a more in-depth screener. I like a good checklist that you can just kind of go through real quickly and figure out where you need to make adjustments. Drum roll, please. Now, what I have for you here, oh my goodness, I'm going to put it in the chat here. This is the inventory that was shared with me. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop it in the chat for you. And you can click on it. And I think you're going to be a very happy little camper. You just got over 600 items for assessments and tasks. So I'm going to click on mine and pull it up, just like, like I told you, the image is hyperlinked on this. It opens up on this page, which is our, just general information. Notice in middle school how many items. It says 247 items in middle school alone. Now, I gave you K-12. I will tell you why. Because as a 7th grade science teacher, I would go to 12th grade, I'd go to the high school, I'd pull ACT items on my assessments. And if I found one that matched my content. And then I would go down to 4th grade and maybe pull an assessment item, or 5th grade, and tweak it to make it more appropriate for 7th grade. So I was reaching and searching all over the place. So you have all of them. You have over 600 items. If you click on acknowledgements, big shout out to these 4 people, because they took the time to go through these items, vet them for you to make sure, you know, they were 3-dimensional, that they did match up with the standards. Now, they're still not perfect. Remember that. They're not perfect. But it gives you a really good starting place. So big thank you for these 4 individuals. They're out of Kansas. And here is your task inventory. And as you start looking at this, you're like, okay, you see 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, kindergarten. That's why we're doing this for every grade level, because we wanted to make sure that everybody knew there were things out there for them. So yes, next Monday's 8th grade. So if you have an 8th grade teacher, be sure to let them know, hey, there's this training you can sign up for. After that, then I go back down to the early elementary, and I'm going to do 2nd grade, 1st grade, and kindergarten. So be sure to share this training out. Be sure, you know, share the document. This is not top secret. Share this out so that other people are aware of it, because we want to make sure people have good items in their hand to help them. Now, you'll notice down here on the tab, I made you an additional tab. That's 6th grade. But now when you click on it, you're going to see it's all middle school, because like we said, NGSS is middle school banded. Not all states treat the middle school the same. So what might be 8th grade in some areas, we might do in 6th grade. So I have all the middle school under that tab for you. So what we're going to do is, I know a lot of you probably already clicking, and that's okay. But what I want us to do is take the time to look at some of the different sources. Notice this column right here that says source. These are coming from multiple sources, different states. Kentucky made the cut. Our TCTs are good items to be utilized for the 3 dimensions. If you're not using those, you need to look at them, because those are not a bad item to have on hand and to be utilizing with your instruction, because they do a pretty good job when you're talking about the 3 dimensions. So don't ignore them because they're from Kentucky. People from other states are looking at them and pulling them and using them as good examples of these next generation science standards. So keep that in mind. So what we're going to do is, I have picked items from this list. Okay, so everything we're going to look at is on this list. But I want you to take a look at the source, and as 6th grade teachers, I want you to take a look at, I want you to think about, I'm gonna let you explore one thing that you pick out of a group of, I think I've got 6 items selected. I want you to pick one assessment task that you want to do. It's your choice. It doesn't matter to me which one you pick. And I'm going to drop the link in the chat for you to be able to click on and explore. And I want you to talk about pros and cons in your mind as you're exploring this yourself. What's good about it? What's bad? You know, what needs to be improved? Because remember, we just looked at a check sheet of things, and you already know what's a good assessment item because you dropped them in the chat for me. And I want you to think about how you might use the item in your own class as a 6th grade teacher. And I did try to pick things that would be more closely aligned to what we would be teaching in Kentucky in 6th grade. So hopefully I did okay on that. And I want you to, depending on what everybody picks, we might do a breakout session, but if everybody kind of picked the same one, that's okay too. We'll let y'all talk about it. But I'm going to let you have 5 minutes. So here are the items. I want you to look at them. You're going to look at your pick. You pick which one you want to look at. I'm going to drop the links to these in the chat. You can pick fossil assessment from OpenSciEd. You can pick the After the Volcano assessment from Kansas, Nebraska. You can pick Whether You Like It or Not from Los Angeles County. You can pick the next generation science assessment, safe storage, identifying the unlabeled liquid. Now that one's a little tricky. You're going to have to do several clicking, but they are well worth the click, let me tell you. SNAP, deer population. This one, you have to scroll down the page. That's from Stanford University. And those are really nice items too. And then of course the Utah formative task, the zebra mussels. So I want you to look at those, maybe, and I want you to pick something that you've never looked at before. So if you are familiar with any of those websites, pick something else, try something else. We will look at each one. And these are not all of them, because you'll notice I didn't pick Kentucky, because we've already had experience with those, and we are in Kentucky. I wanted you to see some other states. So let me put the links in the chat here for you so that you can click on the one you want, and I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes. And I know that doesn't give you a lot of time. Personally, I always like to look at the student, what I would be handing to the student, because it just gives me a good feel of what is this really what I'm looking for. So most of those you're going to be looking at is going to have like the student version. If it does not, you might have to do a little more scanning, but remember, we're looking for particulars like on that checklist of what makes it a good science assessment. So 5 minutes, pros, cons, and how would you use this item? Would you use this item? And how would you use it? Okay, so go ahead and click on your one that you are interested in. They're all in the chat. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to just look at it. So I'm going to go ahead and set my timer. And enjoy. Let me know if you have any trouble with any of the links. Twenty more seconds to finish up looking at and exploring your task. There we go. Time. Okay. Now, I hope you found something you really like. So now what we're going to do, you've explored. Now we're going to let you discuss in a group of people who picked the same item you did. Now, there's 6 items that we had to pick from, and there's 11 people in the room. So if you're in a room by yourself, like when we go into a breakout room, if you're by yourself, just come back to the main room with me and we'll talk about your items and have some conversation. But if there's people in your room, I want you to talk to the people in your room about the pros, the cons of the item that you got to look at, and how you would use the item, because you all are teaching the same thing. You're all 6th grade science teachers. And so you have a lot of great expertise and experience that, it's good to talk to people who are teaching the same thing we are. And so that was another reason of wanting to do these by grade level. So I'm going to put you in, well, I'm not going to put you in, you're going to get to pick your breakout room. So I'm going to open, and I name them by the same thing that you just picked from. It's either one, Open Syed. If you did fossil assessment, you're going to do that breakout room. If you did the after the volcano, you're going to select that one. So I'm going to open the rooms, and you just pick. Once you get there, I'm going to give you, instead of 5 minutes, I'll probably give you 3 because since most rooms are probably just going to have maybe 3 people in it, maybe, or 2, we'll just leave it to 3 minutes. So here I go. And if you have trouble seeing the breakout rooms to select, just let me know what item I need to put you in, and I will drop you in there. So hopefully when I've opened the breakout rooms, you see one to pick. Looks like some of you figuring it out. Good job, guys. Well done. If it doesn't show up on your screen, go to the 3 dots on your toolbar and select breakout rooms, and it should pop them up for you to be able to select. If you cannot find it, because if you're like me and on a phone, I cannot operate it on a phone. I struggle so much. Let me know which one you want me to put you in. You can type it in the chat. And let me know. Okay. Aletha, which one did you pick? Can you tell me? Oh, Rika, which one did you select?
Mary, this is Joanna. I didn't see anyone in my breakout room. It was number 6 I chose. Is there
Okay.
someone there?
Not yet. Stay here with me, Joanna, and let's see.
Okay.
Volcano. Aletha, I see you're in the meeting twice, so I'm gonna put both of you in there, okay? And there's somebody in there, so let me put you in Volcano after the Volcano. All right, and Shane and Rika. Joanna, it does not look like anybody else picked the zebra mussels, maybe.
Okay.
Let me hold on here. Jennifer. Aletha went into after the Volcano, Jennifer. If you want to go back into that room, can you get back into it? Shane, I saw you came in later. Rika, what about you? Where did you want to go? All right, I'm going to set my timer for 2 minutes because I've been in there. Clinton, he was in there by himself too. Oh, sorry, Clinton. Joanna, you said you did the zebra mussels. What do you think about that? Pros, cons?
I did something similar to that last year when I had my 7th graders. See, I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade science.
Oh,
And
so
whenever
I
I
gave you a
had my
jackpot.
7th graders and 6th graders, I did this same thing right here you're looking at, but it was a huge, big unit, and it did a lot more than just this one time. And it's very rigorous because the
Right.
kids they can't say, and I wouldn't let them say this, that it goes up or it goes down the population. They had to find the pattern, and that was the main thing they had problems with. But I love this one. This is really good. I've used something similar to this before, and it's very spot on. It is very
Oh,
spot on.
so definitely something you would
Mhm.
use in your
Yes,
class. Awesome,
yes,
awesome.
definitely. Just the thing about it is, I wouldn't just give it to them and say, do this.
Right.
I suggest that if they're not, kids have trouble finding patterns, I would suggest that maybe you put them in groups first and do it that way first, and then go, and you know what I'm saying?
Yes, kind of
Yeah,
introduce them to this kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. But I
Okay.
really liked it.
Oh, great, great. Clinton, I saw you were the only one with the deer population one, so you really liked that one with the graphs grew and built on each other. Lets them start out slow and build, so it was scaffold. So you would use this, you would use the deer population one, Clinton?
Yeah, I thought it looked really good because it
Okay.
gave you, a simple graph to start with where they can notice the pattern the population's going down. And then it gave them 4 to analyze for reasons why and
Uh-huh.
kept wanting them to relate back to that for their explanation.
Great. So
I did
you would
fit,
use it?
that looks like something I could have used probably a couple weeks ago.
sorry.
And we went
Sorry, I
over
didn't
that.
do it sooner.
Yeah,
Well,
we did the population carrying capacity and all that stuff a few weeks ago.
Well, maybe that would be a good review. Maybe you could utilize it as a review after the fact, just to say, hey guys, let's see how you can do on this where we've already done that. Maybe that would be a way you could use it. Since I'm a little too late, so sorry on that one. So sorry. All right, I'm going to close the breakout rooms. Shane, I know, I hope you can hear. Can you hear Shane? We're going to bring everybody else back into the room. Okay, but you can't speak. Okay. So it's just all we did is we let them each pick one, and I'm going to pull them up and we're going to talk about each one as a group so that we kind of get to have some conversation around them. Do I have everybody back? Let's see. Looks like everybody is back. Yay. All righty. So I did let you all choose in some of the previous sessions. Not everybody got that choice, so I was trying to also model for you all of kind of giving some choice. With all these different options that you have now, you might be able to provide your kids with some choices of things to be able to choose between, especially if it's getting to the same idea. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to pull up each one of these. Now remember, I picked a source from that great big old inventory. I want to tie back to what we're doing. We're letting you explore some of the different sources so that you can see what is available in this inventory. Now, the first one, we're talking about the OpenSciEd. And let me go back here and see. We had a couple of you that did choose the OpenSciEd. Now, for those of you that may not be aware, OpenSciEd is a really good resource. It is free. So this is a free resource, no charge to this one. So they have units. Now the kits, if you purchase the kits, they are at a charge. But OpenSciEd is a free resource. So that is definitely something to check out. It has some things, and they are rated very well on as far as being connected to our standards in those 3 dimensions. Alyssa or Josie, would either of you be comfortable dropping something in the chat or just unmuting and talking about this? Because I pulled it up on the screen so everybody can see it. Pros, cons. Okay, thank you, Alyssa. You think it's a good source and you think it's challenging, but not too challenging. So we saw right there, right off the bat, we see reading for the student. So this is like a student handout. We can see the diagrams, which are great. I love not diagram, but the pictures there. And then we see that there's question for them to go along with. Not something that they can just pick an answer and go on. It's not just that rote memorization. Josie says, I agree. I feel like it was a good assessment for where my 6th graders are right now. Perfect. So it might be something you could take and use. So yay, hopefully that's what all of you will be saying before we're all said and done here, that you found something you can use. So that's the fossil. And remember, OpenSciEd, that's a solid resource for you. If you haven't explored it, you need to make sure that you're going and looking there. Kansas, Nebraska, after the volcano. Jennifer and Aletha, did you all get to take a look at this one? I'm going to click on it. You can drop in the chat or you can unmute, whatever you feel most comfortable. I'm trying to figure out which one I want to do. Let's do this one. Is that the student version? Maybe not. So I can see here, science and engineering, DCI. Students are going to make a claim. Oh, that's a good thing. Jennifer, Aletha, I bet you're typing in the chat. I will not keep. Oh, look at there. That looks nice. Oh, they're with a partner. That's nice. Sometimes that's a good way. That was something we talked about earlier. Joanna and I were talking about her item. Ooh, y'all, I'm liking the look of it. So when I look at this, Jennifer and Aletha, did you all get a chance to? Oh, this is even talking about the vegetation species. What did you think about the item? There you are. I'm having trouble with my audio. Understand, I found the third from links were way above the reading level for 6th grade. Okay. Along with the grass. I didn't get a chance to look at everything. So sorry that you didn't get to look at everything. That is one thing. Sometimes we are going to have to do some scaffolding for some of these items because our kids just may not quite be there yet. With this, it does look like they're supposed to work with a partner on this one, which I do like, which could help you with maybe getting students to a level. But yes, sometimes you will see that when you look at it, you might be a little worried that it might be a little above where the kids are, but maybe you can tweak and kind of give some of those scaffolding items and help build them to get there. But it has all kinds of there it is. So primary succession. So lots of information already found for me to be able to go and pull from. If you like it. Oh, there it is. Articles. Ooh, that's almost like those tabs. I like this. It has a lot to grasp. That is true. I didn't get to look at all of this one. I really like the first overview sheet. Awesome. 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 Alrighty. So that one seems somewhat positive. Did anybody go into whether you like it? Yes. Dina and Madison. Now, if you can unmute, feel free to and talk, or you can type it in the chat. This is Los Angeles County. You can see Office of Education. First, it doesn't look like much. I'll just be honest. When I first opened these, I was like, don't know what to think about this. And I kept going. I kept going. And I'm like, okay, hey, I see question 1 is, this is a positive. It's DCI and cross-cutting concept. That's a nice thing. Oh, and look at this one. It's actually all 3. It's a 3-dimensional question. So it's showing me each question and what it does. Madison or Dina, do you all have anything? What were your thoughts on this item? I'm still trying to get to it. There it is. Oh, there's nice. Okay, I like this source. It had each questions aligned to the standard, core idea, practices, etc. I also really liked that it had sample responses. Ooh, nice. Ooh, look at that, you all. Ooh, choose the best answer. Select all of the weather data sources that should be considered reliable. So it's actually asking you to do more than one. Multi-select, we need those. I really liked it when it has all the websites and links that goes along with the lesson and the samples of questions being asked. Awesome. So hopefully something you definitely might use. I like this one too. Look at all those graphs. Don't have to make up my own graphs. Oh, here you said. So here are the items with the keys. Oh, and the student samples. Ooh, I love that. Now, whenever I was given these, I would utilize these in my class and just pull those up instead of using my kids, because that saved me some work, and then actually had the kids try to score them too. Saved me some work as the teacher. I love it when they give you like actual student responses with the scoring. Awesome, awesome. So now that one was Los Angeles County. There's some really good ones in there. All right, did anybody do? Nobody did this, the NGS. Okay, y'all. I want you to click on that one in the chat, or watch me first. All right, so I'm going to click on this assessment. And here's what's weird about this is, okay, I look at it and I see all this stuff and I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Okay, I'm looking at a safety storage identifying an unlabeled liquid. That, okay, that's those physical science standards. So I'm going to preview it. Well, that's still nothing. This is one that I got. Oh, I'm a clicker. I'll keep clicking until hopefully I find something. The only problem with doing that, I sometimes can't get back to it. So here I'm going to click begin activity. Once I click allow. And so when you look at this, Emma has found an unlabeled bottle of liquid. See a data table. Emma is asking your help to find out if the unlabeled bottle of liquid is one of the 3 liquids used in the lab activity. So I actually have to help her figure out. I love it too, Joanna. This is a great website to get some great questions. Now, I'm a big fan of like using snipping tool. I'll always credit it, that where I got it from, but this is the NGSA. This is the Next Generation Science Assessments webpage. If you've not used this, you're going to love it. It has a whole bank of questions. So when you go back to the inventory sheet here, if you just click on this, the NGSA, it will take you to that website and they're all listed right here. Now it's a little tricky to get to them. Like you find your standard and then you expand it and then you can click and preview them, just like what I went through. What they've done nicely on our inventory is they went ahead and put them by the topic in the content that so where you can just go and click on them. So that's really, really nice. So I really appreciate these 4 people, I tell you, that put all this together for us. Does not have earth, you're right. It's just life and physical. It's just life and physical, which is interesting because 6th grade, that's what we usually get to teach, right, is the earth. As a 7th grade science teacher, I loved earth and space. That was my favorite thing to teach. Love weathering and erosion. But they took it all away when the new standards and gave it all to 6th grade. All right, Clinton, you did the deer one. So let me click it. Do you care to unmute and talk about this one? This is the Stanford website. He did have to scroll down because there's multiple options. Clinton?
Yeah.
You want to talk about this one?
Yeah, sure. I liked that it started with the very simple graph that just showed basically just a decline in deer population, and then really started to ask the students to try to explore and determine why. And it gave you a bunch of different graphs that they analyze cause and effects and tried to put all the pieces together. And then you come to a bigger question at the end to put it all together into one explanation. And it really encourages you to use claims and evidence to support your answer.
Awesome.
And it had a rubric and some student examples, but they're just typed out.
Okay. If they're typed out, now don't think I'm mean, please you all. If they were typed out, I would write them out, and yeah, I would make the best score response. I'd make it in my sloppiest writing that I can have that's still legible. And the worst score, I would copy out and put in my best handwriting to kind of see, did the kids realize that, yes, if you have a neater looking answer, that can have a halo effect, to where people would score it better, but it might look good, but it may not be the best. So making sure that we do read and we make it easy and legible for the scorers to be able to look at, because, you want it to be easy to read for them. So that would be right. Oops, went to the wrong place. Let's go back here. So there's with the student responses. So that looks like a really good one that you could utilize when you're talking about populations. And so if you go to sample exemplars here. So good. All right, awesome. Great. Wonderful. All right, and the last one, Joanna, you did that one. So can you unmute and talk about this one a little bit, or you can type in the chat, whatever you feel most comfortable with.
Yeah, I can. I was kind of concerned at first when I saw that big paragraph, you know what I'm saying, on the previous page. And I was like, okay, all right, this sounded good. But then as I proceeded down to look at the rest of it, I was like, oh, wow, wait a minute now. Wait a minute. It's starting with the phenomenon. Okay. And then I also noticed, see, here's where your graphs are. And I like that. And then the kids have to take these graphs and have to find the patterns. And I did something similar to this. The guys that I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade science. So the guys I had last year as 6th graders, we actually had a this something similar to this. It was the zebra mussels and it was the Hudson River. And I would not let them put in their evidence that on the graph that they saw that it went up and went down. They had to say how it went up and went down. And then they have to look at the years, and then they would have to look at the population, and they would also have to look at how the phytoplankton affected the zebra mussels or the other way around. What did those have to do with each other? So this is a really good one. I don't really see anything other than, I don't think I would just take this into the classroom and just give it to them like me and Mary were talking about. I believe I would group the kids together and let them work on it together. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's a good way, especially, introducing kids to, because these are some pretty tough, rigorous tasks. And so having them feel comfortable doing it together and then kind of getting them to where they get more and more comfortable. But I think that's a great idea, letting them work on it together. I think that's a good thing. So that's the 6 tasks. Now remember, that's only 6 of the sources. That's not all the sources, but that's 6 of them. The Tennessee ones are good. Utah, I really liked. And a lot of you are going to like the Washington Climb Time. It's a really nice resource. The Michigan, it's good as well. In the Sage, honestly, they're all good depending on how you want to utilize them. So just a wealth of information for you, and hopefully not too overwhelming at this point in time. So hopefully you're excited about getting access to that. Now, the next thing I did want to talk about, and this is something just to remind, okay, as a 7th grade science teacher, sometimes I had to miss because of an emergency. Maybe it was my daughter that got up with a fever, or maybe my mom or dad were in the hospital, and I would have to go, and I couldn't get my lesson plan ready. So I always had an emergency lesson plan on my desk. And I'll just be honest, it was always released items from something. Now, as a 7th grade science teacher, for those of you that's been around a little while, you know the Explorer test that used to be given. I would leave that or a released Kentucky, whatever the assessment was called at the time when I was in the classroom. It was not KSA. So I would leave a copy of that assessment, like a stack of those assessments that I wouldn't let the kids write on. They would have to write on a sheet of notebook paper. You gotta remember, this is back in the old day. I would now have it in a Google Classroom and have it there sitting, waiting to be assigned so that the kids could take it with the sub. Now, you still might want to do paper pencil. Sometimes that's a good way to do it. But that way, if I had to be gone, I would say, sub, grab the emergency lesson plan on the desk, let the kids take this sample assessment, and we would go over it when I came back and talk about good strategies of answering these questions. Now, if you have not looked at the released items, and I'm going to drop this in here, the released items from this year, I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but they're 6th grade content, you all. So right there are some released items for you to be able to utilize. So when I click on this, and I go to science, and I go to 7th grade, that's where you would want to click. What I really like about this is, okay, it gives the look. This is kind of, there's my question, but look, it gives a data page. So if I do this as my bell work, let's say, and all of my students in the class get that right, and only 57% got it right when the state took it, that is when I build up my students and talk about how smart they are. That I want you to look, all of you all know this, but look, only 58%, or only 57% of the state got it right when they took it. I was like, y'all just gonna rock this. A lot of what we do as a teacher is build confidence. And so making sure kids feel comfortable with their science knowledge and that they feel like they can do these assessments, because if you've not sit down and had to take a look at this, they're pretty scary looking. Let me just tell you, they are not warm and fuzzy at all. They are pretty intense looking questions. And if you do this in science, it's going to help your reading and math people in your grade level, because they're going to be seeing similar things when it comes to the reading and the math assessments, because a lot of times those reading assessments are your science articles or social studies. So making sure that you are giving these kids these experiences is only helping build those reading and math skills too, because we do a whole lot of math and reading in science. I said the other day, it's science is the marriage of reading, writing, and math in a subject. I mean, it's all of them working together. So we have to do all three. And so making sure that we're doing that and it's helping each other. I mean, you all work together on that. But I would actually copy this assessment, of course, leaving out the questions, the page that would have the answers, and give that to my students as an exam when I would have an emergency. That would be my emergency lesson plan. Because if you look at all of these, notice these are 6th grade standards that the kids were assessed on last year. And so your content is often, it is fair game for the state assessment. So hey, use those questions. I'd pull these questions when I'm teaching Life Science 2-2. I'd pull these questions and have them on my test. Be a great thing to be able to incorporate. Now, the other thing is students being familiar with the testing, format, because that we don't want that to be what trips them up, which can, because where it's on a computer. Kentucky has released these practice tests so that you can let kids be able to go on and they can go through and they can go and see the look. So here's those 2 tabs that are just a really tough thing for the kids to get used to. And the fact that they have to scroll down to get all the data, that's a challenge. And so providing kids, now guess what? Still happening in math and reading. So you providing these experiences with your kids is only helping your reading and math teachers in your grade level. So just, being consistent, trying to utilize that platform. Now, let's leave that side. Let's close some of these before I wind up having troubles. The other thing I have on here, and let me go ahead and drop those in the chat. Some people, here's the practice test website that has the test nav. Now, Kentucky is not the only state that uses TestNav. And I'm only going to put the first 2 in here because I feel like they are the better. When I was teaching, I used Massachusetts all the time, but let me tell you, they're not as good as they once were. Their new website is much better. I would definitely utilize those items. But if you click on that Iowa or New Jersey, I'm going to go with Iowa. Notice that science is tested in the 5th grade and 8th grade. So let's go to the 8th grade assessment. And when I pull it up, it has the same look as what Kentucky does because it's still TestNav. So you can see same bar, same functionality. Look, they still have to scroll down and get to all that data. So just utilizing these and helping kids to see how to navigate, they do need to be familiar with the testing system because it is different. And so if you do have a platform that you can do, like Edulastic or Pear Assessment has that ability. If you have Savez, a lot of times their test system will allow you to make assessments look like this. So, are you providing those kids those experiences with those? Let's see. The other thing that I have for you here is just to show you how important you are. And if you have been in a training with me, you've seen this. It's this vertical alignment. One of the ladies I worked with at Pikeville, she developed it, and then I asked for her permission to be able to continue to use it and to modify it. And the color coding, green means nothing changed with the revised standards. Yellow means there's been changing and the arrows are showing shifting and moving. So you can see most of the changes happened in middle school. And so between you as a 6th grade teacher, the 7th and 8th grade teacher. And so you can see, notice here, this also helps you to see what other grade levels have taught it and how important every grade level is. Now, when we're talking about physical science, notice the 7th grade teacher is very heavy in that, but you providing that foundation to help them is key. The other thing is, notice the life science. That is, they are to teach the first section, molecules to organisms. That's their wheelhouse of where they're supposed to be teaching. But notice 6th grade. Earth and space, remember I said was my favorite thing as a 7th grade science teacher to teach, and notice what happened. They moved it, all the U. And so how important is it that you teach that extremely well? Because 7th grade that's not their content. That is not part of their standards to be teaching in 7th grade. So just being aware of that and making sure, sharing with your 7th grade teacher things that you did so that maybe they can mention things as they're going through some of their physical science or life science, to kind of revisit some of those ideas and like activities or labs that you did would be a huge help. So just want to share that document to help you to see how important every grade level is for science. And we get to have the fun, is what I always tell people. Science is, we get to have the fun with the standards. So now it is 4:45. Let's take a look at our success criteria. Did we increase your access to science assessments and tasks? I hope we can say a big yes, check, thank you. Did we talk about evaluating them and looking for key things? Yeah, we did. And making adjustments. If it doesn't have the science and engineering practice, we need to adjust and add science and engineering practice questions that tie to that standard that go with that. So making sure it's 3-dimensional. Our assessments, not only does our instruction need to be 3-dimensional, but our assessments need to be as well. And that's where some of us have not done it. We're doing it in the classroom, in the day-to-day, but we're not doing it in our assessments, and that's what we want to make sure. Doesn't mean we get rid of our rote memorization questions. We can still have some of those, but it can't be the only thing we assess. We've got to get those 3-dimensional assessments in there. So now that is it for our day. I thank you so much for attending. If you will take just a couple of minutes to help me get better, give me some feedback of what went well, how to make this presentation better to where easier flow, because I've still got some more coming up. I got 8th grade on Monday, and then I start going to the primary, 2, 1, and K. I think I did it backwards. So kindergarten will be the last group. And so I'm going to be doing a similar thing. Help me make this better to where it's most beneficial for teachers when they're with me. Always welcome to any feedback. I realize you took your time out of your day to be with me, and I so appreciate that, but I really want to make sure it's worthwhile for you. So if you don't care, give me some feedback to make sure it is, and what can I do to get better is what I'm always looking for. So thank you so much. When you complete that survey, it will email you a certificate from kvec.training@theholler.org. If it's not in your email when you get off this meeting, check your junk, and if you didn't get it, email me and I'll get you a copy. As long as you hit submit, it'll generate me a certificate. And it should email it, but sometimes some schools have the emails blocked that are anything outside of like the kyschools.gov or kyschools.us. Sometimes they won't let those through, so just let me know. But thank you for being here today. I hope you found something you can use and that you really, really like and can go and hopefully make your load just a little bit lighter, I'm hoping. But have a great day. As soon as you get that finished, you are free to go.